Hi, I'm Paul Robinson, and I'm in Houston this week for a concert by the Houston Symphony under its music director Hans Graf. I'm standing in front of Jones Hall, the orchestra's home, and in a moment I'll be going inside for a conversation with Maestro Graf. The concert tonight is an all Shostakovich program, and in a few days the concert will be repeated in New York City and a few weeks after that in Moscow. The concert begins with a very unusual work called Anti-Formalist Rayog. It's a piece for soloist, a bass voice, with a chorus and a small orchestra. Shostakovich wrote it in reaction to criticism he and his colleagues had been getting from Stalin and the other Soviet authorities. Formalism, well, that was the word of the day. The music Shostakovich had been writing was criticized for just that, for being formalist, Soviet speak for music that was too complex and that had too little revolutionary fervor. Anti-Formalist Rayog was not intended for public performance. It was written by Shostakovich for the amusement of himself and his friends. And had the authorities known about it at the time, the piece probably would have cost Shostakovich his life. Shostakovich had a gift for sarcasm, and in the piece he makes fun of Stalin, no less, and the other Soviet authorities. He portrays Stalin as a fool, perhaps an idiot as well. We can laugh at it now, but it was certainly a courageous act at the time. In my conversation with Maestro Graf, we'll talk further about Anti-Formalist Rayog and the other work on the program, the Symphony No. 11. Well, Maestro, it's a pleasure for me to be here and have this conversation with you.
My pleasure.
And it's so exciting to look forward to the program that you're giving tonight, all Shostakovich, and you'll be taking it to New York in just a few days.
Yeah.
Tell me how this project came together. I know you and the orchestra have been in New York several times while you've been music director, but this is a special project.
In the musical Spring, where we're going, is interested in extraordinary, not normal programs, and they are asking us for original, beautiful, interesting, challenging, whatever programs. So my wish was for years to bring to the stage this apocryph work of Shostakovich, which was not known until the end of the 80s. The existence was not known, and then it was done in Washington by Rostropovich, who was very close and who had the confidence of the men who had saved the autograph. So it's an indoors work, not a concert work, which then got a new shape by Spivakov and his friend Vladimir Milman for small orchestra. So I saw the possibility of combining this now in a real concert with a big Shostakovich to show the span, the ambitus of his musical thinking. He was, of course, we knew that he was a very quick and very professional film music writer. So he could sit down and write in 5 minutes something for 2 minutes of music, which is a very good thing for a composer to have a quick hand. It might be tempting or diluting the artistic, but in his case it didn't. So he had this really destructive day in '48, where he came from this first meeting in January, summoned by the party, where he could guess the outlines of the new Zhdanov doctrine. And he was devastated by that, and even more devastated by the news of the death of Solomon Mikhoels, who was killed the day before in Minsk in a, quote, car accident that everybody knew was much more than that. And he went to the Solomon Mikhoels, the family, to condole, for condolences, and when he had hugged the daughters, he turned around and said into the room, "I envy him." To wish to be dead is the deepest you can get psychologically. From this abyss, he re-emerged writing this piece, the Rajok, to at least get rid of some of the pain he had on his soul.
In so many pieces, Shostakovich was preoccupied with death, but as you said, this is essentially a private piece, and he never orchestrated it.
This is a piece probably but was not even meant for performance. Probably for performance at home, where he played the piano and probably a friend or Svetoslav Richter played and a friend sang it. It's not for professional singing. It's also not for a professional chorus. The chorus is even ad libitum. So we have the incredible situation with our Houston Symphony that we have orchestra members singing, because anything different, I didn't want anything which is like a professional groomed chorus. It should be like a workshop thing, fun, just improvised. Difficult to keep the improvisation, you have to rehearse, but
well, it's an inspired idea on your part, because this is...
I hope it turns out as such.
I'm sure it will. But this is a fairly small-scale piece, a chamber orchestra involved in this. Yes. But then the other half of the program, or most of the program, is a gigantic piece.
180 degrees indeed. That's why we called it, or our marketing people called it, the Two Faces of Shostakovich. The 11th Symphony is a monstrous symphony. It's admirable. It's awe-inspiring. I think of the symphonies I had written till then, including 7 and 8, it's a symphony with the biggest span of dynamics and emotions, from this chilly palace square in St. Petersburg, Dvorcova Plощad, which is between Nevsky Prospect and the Winter Palace, where when you have been there, you imagine a winter morning, chilly at 5 o'clock, and the winds coming in from the bay, and even minus 15 centigrade go to your bone marrow, and then those calls coming from. This should be localizable with the trumpets, calls, and the songs which appear and disappear. It's wonderfully written, and then the outburst of rage, energy, when then right, like the first machine gun shot. It's from deepest and powerless despair to wildest outrage, and it's fascinating. And I think even not knowing the historic connections, just listening to this music with a naive, open mind must be very impressive. It's very difficult for me to understand what people who are not prepared to such a thing feel when they hear such a symphony the first time. I can just hope for them.
It's so powerful. Yeah.
It's very powerful. Probably we're overpowering it a little bit, but...
You're taking the orchestra to New York for the Shostakovich concert, but very soon you're also taking the orchestra to Russia.
It's an incredible thing which happened, and I'm very grateful for all the mistakes which had happened before, which made it possible that we could do it. And there's a tiny bit of arrogance in me to propose to bring Shostakovich 11, not only because we just had it at hand, but as coincidence, which is not a coincidence, shows the Houston Symphony was the first orchestra to play this symphony in America in '58 with Stokowski, and was producing the first commercial record of it, which is still available. And probably they know, I have been a couple of times in Moscow and in Petersburg, in Leningrad then, because I studied there, so probably they know that I was very close to Arvid Janssens, to the father of Maris Janssens. We were practically with 2 years distance or 3 years distance in his class. Maris was already finished and I entered for a postgraduate. So I learned a lot about Russia and about Shostakovich. And I remember one great words of Janssen's. You know, you will probably understand later. Prokofiev is a very good composer. Shostakovich is a great composer. And I, with my mid-European arrogance, looked at him in disbelief. And now I know he's right.
It took some time, though.
It took some time. It took some getting through the layers of understanding of what Shostakovich is.
Do you imagine yourself doing a lot of Shostakovich in the future?
I always did quite a bit. I don't want to typecast myself, but I just had a conversation a couple of days ago with an orchestra where I will return quite soon, that I expressed the wish to do Shostakovich 4, which is a key symphony.
Yes.
This is the turning point before the catastrophe, and then the other turning point, number 5, is, and I'm really looking forward to this. I have a couple of secret wishes. I have done a couple of times the Michelangelo sonnets, this last cycle of songs, which is for piano, in which he orchestrated during the last weeks of his life and was not able to hear realized. This is a very beautiful thing. I want to do Stepan Razin, the other Yevtushenko piece. So I want to stay with Shostakovich. I want to be at his service.
A lot of Shostakovich in your future then.
Yeah, like Bruckner. There are many
so much music.
Many things which have to be done and have still to be a little bit protected.